what you wanted to put. Okay, so we put student ID. So it's telling us that it said the student ID is not defined. So what does that mean? The function is right here. So we're already calling that function there. And we're passing in student ID. We're passing in student ID as the, what you call as the argument. So in order for this to take student ID as an argument, it has to have that as a parameter. So as a parameter, so parameters are, so say like I'll create another one just for example. So if I create this one says I don't know, find by name, right? So if I just do this and just say for X, do the same thing, but I'm looking for X is equal to name, doing a loop over it, it doesn't know what name is. So like even if I put it there, so if this was like find by name, it doesn't know what it is. So I'd have to put that as an argument so I can actually pass that in. So then I would be able to put name there. So now it knows, okay, I put in a name. So now when I loop through here, I'm trying to compare that to whatever name that I put in. So it's the same thing for ID. So what that line is saying, yo, I don't even know what ID is. It's not defined. So how do we fix that? Because you're on the right track. You want to compare. So what you're doing right now is you have this find by ID. And then what it's doing is just looping through here saying for every thing in self.students, you want that right there, that ID, if it's equal to student ID. But your function is saying, I don't know what student ID is. So how do you tell the function, what student ID is? The same way where I did down here, if I was looking for a student's name, it doesn't tell me that because it knows what name is. But if I said some name, it'll be like, yo, I don't know what the fuck that is. So if you look at it, I put name. Why does it know what name is? Right, so I defined it. And that's what it's saying here. It's saying, yo, you haven't defined this shit. I don't know what it is. So you have to define this first. No, you were right. That was pretty much it. You just got to define it. So like once we define it, student.id, that should go away. So it's like, okay, I know what the hell you're talking about now. So what you're saying here now is, so like when you're defining methods, so your method, you have to define some type of arguments. So these are going to be your arguments. This is everything that you're going to use that you want to go into your function. So now that I got name, my function is expecting you to put name in there. So when you call it here, you're going to have to put in, a name, and then it runs this function with whatever student ID you gave it and whatever name you gave it. So then this function takes that student ID you gave it, that name you gave it, and does something with it. It's called a parameter, but it's an argument when you actually put something in there. So this would be an argument, and this would be the parameter. Yeah, because okay, so here is your class, right? So your class is what's going to define like your object, right? So think of your class as like a blueprint to create some type of object, and the object that we're creating is a school, right? So like all of this stuff that we're putting in there defines like what a school is going to be. So you have like a school has students, a school has a name, a school has staff, and a school can also do things. A school can list students. A school can find students by ID. So in here, in a class, we're defining everything that a school can actually do, right? So a school can only find a student by ID because we wrote it in there. We said this is what a school can do, right? So like once we have this class and we created like what a school can do and what it is and what it's about, pretty much defining it, we can use that in our program. So like if we want to use it in our program, we import school and then we create a school. So like school, like I said, could be anything. So we can create this damn place and we can make that into a school. But because we created school, we know we have to give school a name. So the school's name is going to be fucking place, right? So now we have two schools. We have one school called school, and we have another school called this damn place. So if we were to say like print, so we know that this damn place can do things. We know this damn place could find students, and this damn place could list students. And we can also like get all this other stuff. So like if we do this damn place dot name, it should give us the name of this damn place. And it's the fucking place. Right? Because we created a school based off of the shit that we said that it can do and what it is. So when it comes to, and this damn place can also do other stuff like find the student by ID. Right? So it can only, in what and it's looking for the things that we said that we're going to give it. So student ID over here is, you see, it's asking for a student ID because we defined that in our class saying, hey, if we're going to run this function, we need you to give it a student ID because that's what we defined it as when we defined our function, because we're going to take that student ID and compare it to something. So that's why over here, when we're defining the student, we're running the school and it's going to find the student by IDs. You're going to give it ID and it should return you a student if it's in there. But we didn't finish the function. But right now we got it to where you're running through each of the students and then you're trying to figure out if this student's object's ID matches what you gave it. Now you're saying, what do you want to do? We can actually just return that whole student, and then it's just gonna assign that student to be student. So we could turn that object, and then so if once this function returns an object, it just gives it to student, and then so think of it like the client versus the producer. And when you're making this right now, you are the client and the producer. But if you think of this like if you were building this function for somebody else to use, you just want to give them a student and they can do whatever the hell they want with it. So like once they get a student back, what they're doing is saving it to a variable and then they're just printing it out. You know what I mean? So that's all you want to do. You just want to give them student back. You don't need to print it out or nothing like that. Just give them the student object back and then they can do whatever they want with it. So instead of like you said you were printing, yeah, you just return it. If you find it, just return it. Here you go. If not, I guess you can return it's not in there or something like that. So if X, so you're saying if X is in there, student ID, if it matches that, yeah, just return X, and that should be that student's object. And then it's gonna print a string version of it. So like if we run this, it might do something. So Python runner and list all students still work. But we wanted to do 2 to where we individual student and the student ID. I don't know what these students' IDs are. 1, 3, 3, 4, 5, and it returns this student right here. But it just returns the object. But I don't like it. Doesn't tell you, right? Does it? It doesn't take. Oh, it wants you to write a. Oh, so it wants you to run a string method. So what this does right here, let me see. I think it wants you to do this on a student, right? Some objects. You have to do this on a student object. Instant. Yeah. So what this is saying is if you print if we print a class right now or object as a student, what it's going to do is it's going to give you its memory address. So it's going to just print you out where it is in memory. But what this is saying is if we do this other method, if we do like def and then call it str, what we could do then is return something. So I can just return, so let me see, testing. So I just want to see if this works. So what should it return is this right here anytime I just print that object. Instead of it printing this memory address, I'm pretty much trying to say, hey, instead of a memory address, print this thing. So if this works, that means it should print testing. And if it works, we'll just change that to print whatever the hell this is. So I'm just doing this as a test to see if we get testing back. And what was that ID number? So we get testing back. So that's telling us that like we got that right, and all we have to do, I think it just wants us to give it back to us in this format. So this method right here, this method is on the student class. So if this class knows that anytime it sees this method, it automatically knows what to do. So it automatically replaces that memory address that we seen with whatever it is you return. So you pretty much give it this method, and then Python takes care of the rest. It says, okay, I know what this is, and then it just returns, what it needs to return. But in this case, you're going to return, I think it's student dot. No, it'd be self dot, I believe. So it'd be self dot name. So if we do something like this, and we do 2, and then we do 1, 3, 3, 4, 5. Now we got Lisa back, but it wants you like to do all of this shit. Dunder. You said, oh, you got confused on this part?
Yeah.
So this is a student object. So same thing with school object. So it's just an object, but anytime we create an object and say we want to print that object, it's only going to print the memory address. So like right now, if we decide to print school, so remember when I showed you that we can print, school with this damn place and call it this fucking place, whatever. So if I decide to print that, it's just going to print the memory address. Because, that's by default what it is. But if you put that dunder method down there with string, that's kind of saying, okay, don't print that memory address, print this instead. So like if I print out this damn place, it's going to print out the memory address. 2, and we can do 1, 3, 3, 4, 5. See, it just prints out the memory address because we didn't put the dunder. But if we put the dunder and tell it what we want to print, it would take this instead, take that instead.
So I'm gonna type it up. Okay, so I guess my question, for this was when we're doing a find student ID. Why didn't we just return, print the F? Is there a reason why we had to do it through the in the student PY instead of just returning X? Why don't we just return,
because
like
we're
print
the
line, like
we're the producer when we let the client do whatever they want with it. So we don't know. So say we want to do something else with that. Say we get a student and we wanted to do something else with that student. If we just do it for you, define that in the with our method and say, okay, anytime you do this, all we're going to allow you to do is print. Then it doesn't allow the client to do. Say you want to do something else with it. Say you wanted to, I don't know, take the student and capitalize his name or lowercase his name or add his, do something with it. You can't do that if on this side you're saying I'm just going to allow you to print it if you run this. But by just returning the object, you're letting the client do whatever the hell he wants with it. So he gets to decide if he wants to print that student, or he can do student dot upper or some shit and say, okay, now I want this uppercase, or I want to add shit to it. I want to add superstar honor roll or some shit, or take that student and add them to an honor roll list or some shit. Like you can't do that if you just decide that I'm just going to print it for you. You know what I mean? So that's why on the client side, so like I said, you think of it like client and producer or whatever. So that's why we return X. So right now we're getting a student. We found the student and we just returned that student object to that person. And on this side, that person just wanted to print it out, or we just wanted to print it out. But if we wanted to, we could add that to a fucking list of, honor roll students, or a list of people's on the dean's list, or, whatever the hell we want to do with it. But if you just on this side decided that you just want to print it, you can't do shit with that. If you run it, all it's going to do is print. But if I got that student back and like this won't do shit, this is just going to be a print statement at that point.
Right.
But if you return it, you're returning the actual object that we found. So now I'm going to store that object into student, and then I'm going to print it anyway. But that was up to me if I wanted to print it. But I could have literally just added it to a list though too, or some shit.
So we're